Hello and welcome back to Sullivan's Farm. It's been a couple of weeks since I threw up a video. I was on a break for to catch up on a few jobs as much as anything else, or more than anything else. So what have I been doing for those few weeks? Well, it's a few jobs here and there, but mostly it's been about managing this wet weather, which hasn't been much crack. Mostly it's been about managing that, as I said, but I managed to get a bit of fencing done here and there as well. So we're out in the far off knock. We'll look at the calves in the distance in a second. But we got this side of the near side of the far off knock fenced anyway. Today is a decent enough day. The sun is out and there's a bit of blue sky, but there's been an awful lot of this in the last couple of weeks here in the far off knock. But sure, what can we do? Only give out about it and then get on with it either way. I got this far down side of the near side of, I'm going to start that again. I got this side of the far off knock fenced. What I had been doing was putting up white stakes and a reel along there, taking it from someplace else where it was needed and then taking it down again and putting it up again, and it was just adding and adding time every single time. So I eventually got around to cutting back the hedge a bit. It was completely growing out in the field. Cut that back a bit, put up the stakes, put up the wire, connected it up, and sure, this light was always there then. So we cut back a bit. We didn't cut back too much, but it's just, you can see there where there was old Sally's growing out into the field, but we've left a nice bit of space, so the hedge can grow back a bit again, trees can grow out a bit again, but it'll be just easier now to get somebody in with a hedge cutters on the back of a tractor rather than me with a chainsaw and a bill hook and messing and getting thorns in my hands and all that. I will carry on. So you can see along there as well, just where briars grew out, furze bushes grew out, anything, whatever you were having yourself grew out. So the plan will be to throw a bit of grass seed down there, and hopefully the grass over time will outcompete whatever weeds and briars and furze bushes were growing out there. Again, what I can do myself there too now is to cut in with the topper next year, so that'll help mulch up any other briars or bits of bushes that are there. It's that kind of topper, it'll do that work for us. There's another remnant that took a little bit of while to take down and roll up and untangle from briars and furze too, but if anybody wants it, there's a bit of sheep wire there free to a good home. Let me know, and you're more than welcome to bring it away. Now, I've just jumped that fence. I had to let the camera out of my hand while I was jumping it, and we're in the far off side of the far out knock now. I did the same kind of fencing along there a couple of months ago. There's only one last part around by the very end of the far off knock now, where there's white stakes and a reel, but we get around to that too. So when it's done, what's that? 2 and 2 is 4 and 2 is 6. It's about 600 yards, 600 meters of new fencing that's been put in. Now that's not an awful lot in the grand scheme of things, and I'm sure there's professionals that they do that in the day, but when you're only messing around and you have ditches to clear and you're trying to get at it per time, it takes a little bit of time. But it'll be done, it's done right, and it'll be standing when I'm living in the south of France in 20 years time, hopefully. Still plenty of thistles out here in the far off knock. Nice cover of grass, even though it is wet, and getting it grazed properly is a job at the moment. But we'll keep at it. We'll keep at the thistles. Where I topped it, some of the rushes, the green rushes came back. So I suppose, I don't know, could you get a weed licker or something like that to do a job on them? But I'll top them for now anyway. I think the cattle eat them when they're kind of small and green and light. So we'll see how it goes. Very much a work in progress. And this then is the furthest away side of the far off knock. So you can see the white stakes and the reels there kind of following the curve. It's a straight line, would you believe, starting from down there. But sure, trees fell out and they were left fall out by, not me, but furze bushes grew out. So there's a bit of clearing to be done, and then we'll have a straight line down that way too. We'll take down that wire and reel and bring it back up to where it's needed to make paddocks for the bigger cattle. Here are the calves. They're happier today than they were the last couple of days. It's been fairly wet and miserable on them, but I'm happy enough with them overall. As these things go, we're doing the best we can for them, so they're growing on well. It's no accident that they're out here in the far off knock, since the bad weather has kind of come there with the last week or 10 days after that nice spell we had. There's a bit of shelter out here, and I think, as I've said before, for whatever reason, the animals seem happier. They seem more content out here. It's surrounded by forestry the whole way around. Some of it quailcha, some of it stuff we planted ourselves. So they do seem contented. I've been bringing them out a bit of barley straw, last year's barley straw, not this year's stuff. And I've upped, they were getting 1 kilo a day of cubes, and I started giving them 1.5 kilos. So all small things, and hopefully it's made a difference. We'll be weighing them next week. We'll know an awful lot more about them after that. I had to record myself jumping back out that time, lest anybody think that fella's making it up. He put the camera up in the bough of a tree, but sure, we got the shot. That's the main thing. Could do with being cleaned out, and we'll get to that too. It's part of the broader plan. But another thing I was at in the last couple of weeks was a water quality meeting organised by a few local farmers here. The water quality in this area is good. We're in the white area of that infamous map that the EPA produced a few months ago, and we want to stay in that area. So the meeting was really about bringing awareness to the region, to other farmers in the area, as well as just to open up the engagement with a few advisors. And it's about farmers taking control, being proactive, making sure we keep the water quality we have. I just wanted to mention that. I was passing the stream here. The farm is a few miles away from the River Mahon here, but the stream's on every farm, and hopefully nobody's going to be doing anything silly anytime in the next while. I'm sure they're not. They haven't been, as far as I know, in this area. As I said, the water quality is good, and it's just about maintaining that as well now. The bike is a bit muckier, but the bike is still the preferred mode of transport around here as well. That's not after changing after the last few weeks. There was a couple of days there where you couldn't go out on the bike, and I had to drive down and drive up the roadway, but the bike is still the preferred mode of transport. The first cattle of the year were sold here as well. It's about a fortnight ago now. 2 whitehead heifers went to a local butcher. Now, before we get into the figures quickly on any of them, they were 2 of the best calves I bought. I think I paid €170 each. As soon as they landed, they hit the ground running. They were never sick a day. They took to the milk, they took to the cubes. They did flying outside when they were out wintered. They did flying on their second summer. They got probably a month of cubes, about 3 kilos a day, and there was a nice cover of flesh on them. So they made the equivalent of, give or take, about a £5 a kilo. What made a big difference too, and it's something else that you have to factor in when you're talking about your time and the labour and the other costs, is that the butcher who bought them came and collected them himself out of the yard. So there was no haulage fee, there was no commission for the factory or commission for the mart, and I didn't have to spend a half a day at the mart selling them either. It's another sign we're moving into a different time of the year. I have 7 sets of reels and white steaks, and when you start to have them spare like that, you know you're moving into this time of the year. These cattle are going to the mart in the next few days, so all going well. By the end of the video I'll have an update on what they weighed and what prices they made and all those bits and pieces. So they were weighed, all of these were weighed around the 3rd of August, and I came up with a plan from there as to, or an estimate from there as to what weight they'd be in a month's time and what weight they'd be in 6 weeks' time. Rough estimate. I'm not assuming they're all going to put on 1 kilo a day since then, but it just gave me an idea as to who was going and what was going or what could go then. So there's 12 of them there. Some of them Angus heifers. Let me try and get a look at them so you don't have to be looking at me and listening to me all the time. There's Angus heifers here, and they should be over 520, 530 kgs. They could go straight to the factory, but I don't know. I've been watching the mart online there the last few weeks. They seem to be going fairly well at the mart. as well. So when we're bringing more of them, which are kind of forward stores to the mart, we may as well put them all in the one load and off they go. There's a decent Angus heifer there now. You're not too bad either, you're kind of stretching there now. Not a huge amount of flesh on these ones, like as I said, she's a nicer one, alright. Oh, that's a bullock. We won't make that mistake again. Made a mistake like that there last year, bringing them to the mart. I thought it was a heifer, or I thought it was a bullock, whited bullock, but sure, when I went up to the mart they said it was a heifer, but we managed it anyway. They're clean enough. With the weather, they were in a couple of nights, well, they were in a couple of days too, getting a bit of silage just to get them off the ground, because they were cutting it up and walking all the grass into the ground. But they're doing all right. I'll be happy enough to move them on now. Overall, there's a nice limousine bullock now. If he's gaining 0.9 a kilo maybe since the 3rd of August, he should be around 540 kgs now, so he's a decent animal, and a nice bit of a finish on him too. It was hard enough, I rang around, and it was hard enough to get a beef finisher nut. So what I ended up doing was getting a 16% nut and mixing in a bit of barley with it to reduce the protein levels and up the energy finishing levels. So it's either a genius move or it makes no difference whatsoever. Come on, so if you're going 8 minutes. Stop. Go on, out of them. There she is, looking at us. Can't see her rightly from there. She's the one now, I think I showed her in the first video I made last year. She's supposedly a limousine heifer. She's coming up, I don't know, will she be 30 months coming up to Christmas now, and she's going to the mart, but she's probably still not 500 kgs, and she's never been sick like the other whiteheads. Never sick, hit the ground running, no problems with her. But the one thing I can't do, and she can't do herself, is change her genetics. I don't know, is there a Jersey? There's definitely some breed of Jersey in her. I don't know, is there a Dexter or a Kerry cross or something in her too, but she's a little... Anyway, I'll be glad to see the back of her. 2 other jobs I got done in the last couple of weeks as well is to finally get a price on putting in slurry storage here at the cubicles. It's around what I was thinking it would be, but I was pleasantly surprised, I suppose we're all optimists, that the price I had in my head is for a Grand Spec version of what I wanted to put in there. So I think it's around 100 feet, 16'6" slat and 8 feet deep. Because it's Grand Spec, I'll probably go down the Tams route. I've never done that in through Tams here before. I know nothing about it, but seeing as I can get it for that kind of money, and the non-spec one was only a couple of thousand cheaper, it's a kind of a no-brainer. And it's like once in a blue moon I would use that phrase, but it seems to be a no-brainer anyway to go down the Grand Spec route for that. The other job I did up here as well then was to spray off the docks on that area ground that we reclaimed. So I sprayed it off myself there with Graze On Pro probably nearly 2 weeks ago now, and yeah, there was a bit, I ran out of stuff, so I just need to do that bit along here again, but it seems like I've had a decent kill on the rest of it anyway. It's a little bit spongy underground still, but say the next time the calves come into this paddock here, we'll leave them at it. I'd been fencing it off before now, but we'll leave them at it the next time. So we're back from the mart. Bit of a delay up there, but we'll get to that in a second. Happy overall. I'll throw up the figures there now. For the bullocks first, I was happy enough with the... Sorry, just kicking a thistle there. Happy enough with the Angus lads. The cattle were loaded yesterday morning at, I think, about 9 o'clock. And it was closer to 3 o'clock when they were sold then. I just didn't book them in on time, so they were some of the last lot to be sold. The estimate is that they could have lost between 15 and 20 kgs between loading, transport and standing around in the mart. So you have to factor that in. But the Angus bullocks, I'm happy enough with them. They sold fairly well. I thought the Limousine lad would make a little bit more per kg, but look, it is what it is. And again, I thought I had myself convinced that the Belgian Blue lad was heavier, even though I weighed him back in August and I knew what rate roughly he'd be. I had myself convinced, looking at him out in the field, geez, he's a super bullock, he's flying. I'll bring him too. So look, happy enough overall. Again, the Angus heifers, we'll have a quick look at them. They did very well too. The 490 kgs, I was pleasantly surprised, factoring in that they might have lost 15 or 20 kgs along the way too. More thistles. And yeah, happy enough with the second bunch of Angus heifers too. They made a good price per kg, which I suppose is a good result overall. And then we get to the little Limousine one at the end. She's the one I showed you there a while ago. She came in a bunch of 16 and never sick a day. It's just her genes. Probably lost €200 on her during her time here, between buying her and feeding her and bringing her to the mart and haulage and cubes and silage and fertiliser and every other little thing. But she's gone, and that's the end of it, and we'll move on. And that's it for this video. Thanks a million for watching. The next video, we'll go through the rest of the bits and pieces that have been happening over the past few weeks. The rapeseed, fodder rape, is going very well. We'll have a look at the other cattle, the ones that are left here now, see what the plan is for them. And yeah, we'll get the calves weighed between now and then as well, and see how they're doing and come up with a plan for them. So again, thanks a million for watching, and we will talk to you soon. Good luck.